Can you feel it too? The streets look fine. The houses still stand. But the life? It's gone. Once busy neighborhoods are turning quiet. No backyard barbecues, no school buses, no corner stores. So why are diners shutting down even when the population hasn't dropped? Why are parents now driving 40 miles just to find a pediatrician in 2025? These aren't ghost towns on a map. They're ghost towns in real time. Quietly crumbling from the inside, while the headlines look the other way. We're breaking down 9 states quietly falling apart, and your state might be next. Here's the part no one else is showing you. Number 9, New York. What happens when one of America's most iconic states starts falling apart? But not in the way you think. Everyone's eyes are on New York City, sure. But while the skyline stays bright, it's the rest of the state that's slowly fading out in 2025, and hardly anyone's paying attention. Drive through places like Delaware County, Essex, or Steuben, and it hits you. Boarded up shops. Silent schools. For sale. Signs that have been sitting for months without a single inquiry. This isn't just decline, it's erosion. In the past 2 years alone, more than 20 rural school districts have either shut down completely or been forced to merge. And now, kids are spending up to 90 minutes just to get to school. That's not just exhausting, it's nearly impossible for many working families to keep up with. And it's not just schools. Look at the mail. Since 2020, over 1,200 USPS drop boxes have quietly disappeared across the state, most of them gone in just the past year or so. In rural towns, that's not a minor inconvenience. That's how people, especially seniors, pay bills, get medications, and stay in touch. Take that away, and you're not just cutting off services. You're cutting off lives. And then there's healthcare. It's a disaster. More than 10 small hospitals have closed in the last 5 years. And now in 2025, there are entire counties without any labor and delivery services. Imagine being told you need to cross into another state just to have your baby. That's not just outdated, that's medical exile. But maybe the most crushing part: the utilities and infrastructure. Power outages are becoming the norm in upstate towns because the electrical grid is ancient, and no one's funding the repairs. Internet? Still a pipe dream in many places. Plans to expand broadband are frozen in political red tape, and thousands of homes remain cut off from the digital world. Meanwhile, luxury developments are creeping in. City transplants are scooping up land, driving prices through the roof. Locals, who've been here for generations, are being priced out. Not by choice, but by desperation. Some are watching their family homes vanish, just to keep up with soaring property taxes, which in some areas have jumped over 20% in just 3 years. This isn't some sudden, dramatic collapse. It's slower, quieter, more painful. New York isn't losing its skyline, it's losing its soul. Its people. Its neighborhoods. Its small-town roots. And in 2025, families aren't just leaving, they're being pushed out, one silent struggle at a time. Number 8, Mississippi. Why are people packing up and leaving Mississippi with little more than a truck and a prayer? Because in 2025, this deep south state is reaching breaking points no chart or graph can fully capture. Since 2021, more than 60 rural clinics have shut their doors. And in some counties, there's no pediatric care at all. Families are left making impossible choices, either skip the doctor entirely or drive hours, sometimes across state lines, just to get their kids checked out. And it doesn't stop there. Mississippi now leads the nation in rural broadband blackouts. Tens of thousands of homes are without reliable internet. That means students are falling behind because they can't log into class, and parents can't work from home, even if they wanted to. Want to fill up your gas tank in some of the smaller counties? Good luck. Gas stations are closing down, too, leaving some families to drive 40 miles just to find fuel. That's not a quick errand. That's a half-day journey for something as basic as gasoline. And no, it's not that the entire state is just clearing out. The houses are still there. The streets are still there. But the systems people depend on to live, healthcare, internet, fuel, those are vanishing. Quietly. Piece by piece. This is what a silent collapse really looks like. Not an explosion. Not a headline. Just one family, one service, one lonely mile at a time. Number 7, Connecticut. What happens when the cost of living keeps climbing, but the services that made it worth it start disappearing? That's the question families across Connecticut are asking every single day in 2025. Now, this state might not be grabbing headlines for mass exodus like some others, but don't let the silence fool you. People are quietly packing up, and the reasons? They're stacking up fast. Just in the past year, 8 small-town libraries have shut down. And we're not just talking about the loss of books. These places were lifelines, offering free internet, homework help for kids, even job search support for towns with no other public gathering space. When a library closes in a small town, it doesn't just leave a building empty, it leaves a hole in the community. Meanwhile, Connecticut's affordability crisis is squeezing the middle class hardest. In 2025, property taxes jumped again. In some areas, they've gone up 15% in just 2 years. And what are residents getting in return? Shrinking public services, crumbling roads, neighborhood schools shutting their doors. Several elementary schools have merged or closed completely due to low enrollment, forcing kids into overcrowded classrooms miles away from home. It's disruptive, it's stressful, and it's getting worse. And let's talk groceries. More than a dozen independent food markets in small towns have shut down in 2025. For families without a car, this isn't just inconvenient. It's devastating. Add to that the fact that gas stations in rural areas are vanishing too, and now some people are driving 20+ miles just to fuel up. Healthcare? Also unraveling. Community clinics in smaller towns are either closing or barely scraping by with skeleton crews. And mental health care? It's practically vanished in some counties. There's not a single full-time provider left. The broadband gap is still a major issue, too. While wealthier suburban areas stay connected, rural families are stuck with spotty service, or no internet at all, cutting them off from remote work, online learning, and even telehealth. And here's the frustrating irony: Connecticut still has one of the highest median incomes in the country. Yet residents are watching their money disappear in taxes while their quality of life crumbles around them. This isn't just a rich state in trouble. This is a state where even the well-off are starting to ask, what are we still paying for? The collapse here isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, frustrating, and spreading fast. Number 6, Vermont. How does a state known for maple syrup, charming red barns, and snowy winter getaways start quietly falling apart? In 2025, Vermont, this peaceful New England gem, is facing a breakdown no one's really talking about. But for the people living there? It's felt every single day. Take the post offices. In tiny rural towns, they used to be more than just places to send mail. They were lifelines. But in just the past year, 8 have shut down, and more are on the chopping block. For older residents relying on mail-order medications, or families without strong internet, it's not just inconvenient. It's a constant struggle. Schools are being consolidated too. That means kids, some as young as 5, are riding buses hours each way, through harsh Vermont winters, just to get to class. In a state where snowstorms can shut down entire roads, that's not just tough, it's a potential disaster waiting to happen. And then there's housing. Vacancy rates are creeping up in places like Essex County, where more than 1 in 10 homes now sit empty. Sure, some of those are vacation homes owned by out-of-staters. But many? They've been abandoned, left behind by locals who simply couldn't afford to stay. Why? Because property taxes are rising faster than wages. For working class families, that means having to let go of homes passed down through generations, not by choice, but by sheer financial pressure. Healthcare isn't faring any better. Some rural hospitals are severely short-staffed, and in some cases, maternity wards have closed altogether. So yes, pregnant women are now being told to drive hours just to deliver their babies. In a blizzard? That's terrifying. And the broadband problem? It's still real. Despite all the promises, many Vermont communities are stuck with dial-up level speeds, or nothing at all. That makes remote work, telehealth, and online learning pretty much impossible. And here's what makes this so deceptive. Vermont isn't seeing a huge population drop. It's not a loud, chaotic collapse. It's slow, quiet suffocation. The barns are still standing. The landscapes are still beautiful. But the systems people rely on, schools, healthcare, communication, they're slowly disappearing. This isn't just rural decline. It's the slow dismantling of daily life, and almost no one outside the state is even noticing. Number 5. California. How do you go from being the dream state to a place families are quietly fleeing in 2025? The signs aren't on the front page. They're in your neighborhood, your school parking lot, your grocery aisle. Everyone loves to talk about high taxes and politics, but that's just scratching the surface. The real crisis? It's unfolding in places like the Central Valley, the Inland Empire, and what used to be affordable suburbs, now cracking under the weight of cost and collapse. Take towns like Merced, Hanford, and Delano. Housing vacancy rates there have jumped 3 to 5% in just 1 year. But don't be fooled, those homes aren't waiting for new buyers. They're empty because families are giving up, walking away, or losing them altogether. Sky-high insurance premiums and rising mortgage stress are pushing people out, one household at a time. And the schools? Breaking apart at the seams. In 2025 alone, more than 30 public schools in lower-income districts have either merged, lost essential staff, or cut core programs just to stay afloat. If you can't afford private school, your kid might be in a classroom so overcrowded, learning feels more like survival than education. Healthcare access? Another slow burn crisis. While the major cities still have top-tier medical care, small towns are becoming healthcare deserts. In parts of Northern California and the high desert, residents are driving over an hour just to get a checkup. And in 2025, some counties now have fewer than 2 primary care doctors per 10,000 people. That's not just bad, that's a health emergency in the making. Even grocery stores are vanishing. Big chains are pulling out of low-margin areas, leaving behind food deserts where corner stores charge double for low-quality goods. And when gas hits $6 a gallon, even those short grocery trips start to feel out of reach for working families. Utilities? Don't get your hopes up. Rolling blackouts are back in parts of Northern California, and in rural, fire-prone zones, residents now face forced power shutoffs anytime strong winds roll in. Imagine trying to work from home, keep your fridge running, or prepare baby formula, with no power. For many, that's just a regular Tuesday. Sure, the headlines are filled with celebrity drama and Silicon Valley riches, but regular families? They're suffering in silence. They're not chasing dreams, they're trying to survive. California's collapse isn't loud. It's in the quiet heartbreak of being priced out, burned out, and forgotten by a system that's no longer working for the people who need it most. Number 4. Illinois. Why are people still leaving Illinois, even while the skyscrapers shine and Chicago keeps expanding? Because beyond the glow of the city, entire counties are on life support, and it's ordinary families paying the price. In 2025, over 20 rural school districts have either merged or shut down entirely. These weren't just schools, they were community anchors. Now, they're boarded up and lifeless. And for families, that means long daily commutes for kids, fewer extracurriculars, and overcrowded schools that feel more like warehouses than places to learn and grow. But the stress doesn't stop with the kids. Parents are now spending more on gas, more time behind the wheel, and less time at home, all just to keep up with the new reality. Then there's food. Between 2022 and 2025, over 30 small towns lost their only full-service grocery store. That's not a statistic. That's a crisis. Families are left with overpriced gas station snacks or 25-mile trips just to find fresh produce. It's no longer a matter of convenience, it's a health issue. Healthcare? It's collapsing too. In places like Alexander and Pulaski counties, hospitals have either shut down or scaled back to the point that even basic emergency care is a 1-hour drive away. And in 2025, some counties have fewer than 3 doctors per 10,000 people. If your child breaks a bone on a Saturday afternoon, good luck finding someone nearby to help. And then comes the part that really stings: the property taxes. Illinois already has some of the highest in the country. And guess what? They're still rising, even while services disappear. Schools are closing. Clinics are shutting down. But the bills? They keep going up. How does that add up? And while Chicago thrives with blazing fast internet, rural towns are stuck in a digital dead zone. Outdated DSL, or no connection at all. Remote work isn't even a dream out here. It's a punchline. Here's the hard truth: Illinois isn't collapsing loudly. It's quietly unraveling beyond the city borders. And in 2025, it's clear, young families aren't leaving because they want to. They're leaving because staying no longer makes sense. This is what a modern collapse looks like when it hides behind a booming city center. Quiet. Brutal. Personal. Number 3, Minnesota. What do you do when the land of 10,000 lakes, a place full of charm and heritage, slowly starts turning its back on the very people who built their lives there? In 2025, families across Minnesota are quietly asking that question, while packing up and moving on. This isn't about a sudden boom or bust. It's not dramatic. It's slow erosion of infrastructure, of community, of stability. In towns like Ada, Lake of the Woods, and Benson, entire school districts have shut down or been forced to merge. What does that mean for families? Kids spending up to 3 hours a day on a school bus. And for working parents, it's become almost impossible to juggle jobs, childcare, and school closures that pop up without warning. Healthcare? That's another red flag waving in plain sight. In some rural counties, 24-hour emergency rooms are no longer available. Expectant mothers aren't planning around due dates. They're planning around weather and distance to the nearest hospital. That's not just stressful, it's dangerous. And then there's internet, or the lack of it. Even in 2025, over 150,000 households still don't have access to high-speed broadband. That's not just inconvenient, it cuts people off from remote work, online learning, telehealth, and even basic government services. It's like being locked out of modern life entirely. Now add Minnesota's brutal winters on top of that, frequent power outages, rising heating costs, and aging infrastructure that can't keep up. For many, it's no longer about wanting to stay, it's about figuring out how to leave. Even lifelong residents are saying it. This isn't the Minnesota I grew up in. The charm is still there, the snow still falls, the roads still get plowed. But behind the frosted windows, family life is cracking apart. Minnesota isn't collapsing in flames, it's freezing in silence. Number 2, Louisiana. What happens when an entire state starts to feel like it's running on fumes? In 2025, that's exactly what life feels like for families across Louisiana. It's not just struggle anymore, it's survival, with barely anyone stepping in to help. Forget the flashy headlines about population trends. The real story? It's playing out in places like St. Helena and Madison parishes, where grocery stores are vanishing faster than new ones can open. Families are now driving 30 to 50 miles just to pick up the basics. The corner stores that once kept small towns running? Shuttered, thanks to rising insurance, supply chain nightmares, and fewer customers who can even afford to shop. This isn't some rural inconvenience, it's a gut punch to everyday life. And schools? Louisiana has lost over a dozen public schools in low-income areas just between 2023 and 2025. And more closures are coming. Parents are scrambling, bus routes are getting longer, and classrooms more crowded. But it's the kids who are paying the highest price, missing out on opportunity, stability, and a chance at a better future. Healthcare? Hanging by a thread. Entire regions, especially in the Delta and Bayou, have no access to OBGYNs, pediatricians, or trauma centers. Small hospitals are either closing their doors or merging just to survive. Emergency services? In some places, an ambulance might take over an hour to reach you. And in a real emergency, that's not just a delay, it's a death sentence. Even basic utilities are breaking down. Power outages, caused by old infrastructure and extreme weather, are becoming routine. And now, flood insurance premiums are spiking, trapping families between rising bills and a growing threat of natural disaster. And the internet? Still a cruel joke in 2025. Thousands of rural homes remain completely disconnected. No broadband, no cell service, no digital lifeline. That shuts down access to remote work, online learning, even telehealth. Entire communities are left behind, invisible on the digital map. But here's the cruel twist: many families can't afford to leave. Home prices are stagnant, wages are low, and the cost of moving is out of reach. So they stay, watch their neighborhoods crumble, and try to survive in a system that seems to have forgotten them entirely. Louisiana's collapse isn't on the horizon, it's already happening. Quietly. Painfully. One household at a time. Number 1, Pennsylvania. The state frozen in time. In 2025, Pennsylvania isn't collapsing, it's quietly fading. Over 1,400 towns have lost people, but it's what's happening behind closed doors that's worse. Schools are vanishing. Since 2023, dozens of small-town schools have shut down or merged, forcing families to juggle impossible commutes or give up on stability altogether. Healthcare? Whole counties now have 0 emergency rooms. Places like Cameron and Forest face 60-mile drives just to reach basic care, or risk going without it. Even post offices are disappearing. Over 25 rural branches gone, cutting off access to meds, bill payments, and essential services. And without high-speed internet? Many have no way to bridge the gap. Add in crumbling roads, aging water systems, and rising property taxes, and families are quietly leaving. Not just the elderly, but young professionals and working parents too. This isn't dramatic, it's invisible. A slow unraveling. A silent collapse. One household at a time. If this hit home, like, share, and subscribe, because the stories they don't want you to hear are the ones we're telling.